probably let's start the conversation with sustainability. How do you translate sustainability in the African context? It's pretty new for the continent. We've heard talking about for the last few years in Europe, in California, but how does it translate into the African context? And Oluyatoyin, I will start with you first. Yes. Please.
Thank you very much, Laura, and I'm glad to be here. So, sustainability as a concept is not new. In the African context, we're trying to see how to tailor-make it into our continent to ensure that it's embraced in the way we do business. So the way I'd like us to look at it is from this perspective. All of us could argue and say Africa only contributes 2% to global emissions. That's correct. So why bother? Why are we the ones, trying to ensure we're embedding sustainability goals into our businesses when we are not really that carbon intensive in terms of the way we do business? However, in spite of that, we should ensure that we continue to improve. Continuous improvement is what we are looking at. And there are various ways in which businesses can embed sustainability goals into what they do. I can look at it from the ESG perspective as the environmental, social, and governance policies that go into your businesses. I think the whole idea is to ensure that as we're running our businesses in the continent, we ensure that we reduce the negative impact of our businesses on the environment in terms of carbon reduction, in terms of ensuring that our businesses do not decimate the environment from pollution, water pollution, waste pollution, and then also from the social aspect also, the host community where we run and operate our businesses, especially industries like the oil and gas, mining, power. How does our business impact their sources of livelihood, and how are we able to give back to those communities as a result of our business? So there's also a huge conversation around aquatic life. So our businesses, how does it affect the ability of those that their major or main source of livelihood is fishing, or the agricultural communities? How do we ensure that our businesses do not decimate the land in which they do their business? And for instance, Africa is actually at a point where we're urbanizing and industrializing, and it's very important because in terms of energy poverty is still quite high in Africa, and so it's important for us to continue to enhance and improve our energy consumption, but we need to do that in a sustainable way. So we're continuing to urbanize, we're continuing to industrialize, but at the same time, we're not increasing our carbon emissions. And I guess as we talk and discuss on the panel, we'll look at various methodologies by which companies can integrate ESG strategies and targets into the way they run their businesses. Thank you.
Perfect. So continue to increase access to energy, but in a sustainable way.
Yes.
So to keep that, you were mentioning 2% of global emissions come from Africa, to keep those numbers in a controlled manner. It's a tough exercise, right? So let's hear perhaps from you, Mbali, on the instruments you see in sustainable finance. So perhaps an overview of the types you've seen applied across Africa, and then we'll see how these apply to specific projects. Perhaps from you, Mbali.
Thanks. So at Nedbank Corporate and Investment Banking, we advance financing to energy companies through our Sustainable Finance Solutions team, as well as our Energy Finance team. So it's a collaborative effort within the CIB franchise. And really, Sustainable Finance Solutions is primarily responsible for embedding environmental and social governance factors into the funding solution. So essentially, we structure the sustainable finance instruments. That would be your green loans, your social loans, social bonds, sustainability-linked facilities, which is more relevant for this panel. And the most important part of why it's important that we use sustainable finance instruments is that they enable us to measure our impact, both from an environmental and a social point of view. And I guess sustainable finance instruments that we've seen energy companies quite a lot of is your green loans and your green bonds. So essentially what that means is that you're raising funding and it's advanced towards predefined eligible green projects. So there's an eligibility criteria that is set out by sustainable funding guidelines, and typically it would be like your renewable energy projects or projects that incorporate energy efficiency. And then the next structure would be sustainability-linked facilities. So that funding can be used for general corporate purposes. However, we embed sustainability performance targets and key performance targets into those funding instruments. So if one of the important factors for your business and a key industry issue is a reduction in GHG emissions, that is a KPI that we would include in that funding mechanism. And it's been quite advanced within the African context and across other jurisdictions. We do this for our clients a lot. The third one is transition finance. So essentially what we do there is we are trying to assist energy companies in shifting from high carbon to low carbon operations. So that funding can be used to invest in cleaner technologies and infrastructure. And what we've seen is that it helps our energy companies in staying abreast with compliance requirements, especially in an industry where there's constant regulatory changes. So it's very important. It's also a risk mitigation tool in some way and shape or form. And there's also then the last one, which is your fundraising frameworks. So if you're looking to explore the sustainable finance market and raise funding within that market consistently, then we would develop a framework for your organization where your use of proceeds would really just outline the projects that you would fund from a green or social point of view, and then sustainability-linked fundraising framework then outlines the key performance indicators that you would like to embed in your funding instruments. We've done this for NG as an example. We actually packaged their debt funding. It was a 2.5 billion facility. It was a green loan. And we also then did a framework for them, and this is in support of their renewable energy projects as well as energy storage. So those are just practical examples of what we do from a banking point of view.
So quite a wide range of instruments, right, that do apply to very different stages of industrialization in a way around Africa. Either you try to decarbonize existing ones or incentivize new industries, new processes. How does it go at First Bank of Nigeria for you in terms of adapting these terms? Do you use the same terminology? And what applications do you use across the energy value chain?
Okay, thank you very much. So for us in the bank, we actually have an ESG framework which is embedded into our credit review process, and specifically for carbon-intensive industries, oil and gas, mining, and the power industry. So there's a set of questionnaires that is developed, which we engage the clients to help to measure their emissions, to measure how compliant they are with respect to social requirements in terms of their governance and the risk management and structures that they put in place. All of that actually helps to rate them in our credit rating profiling in terms of the kind of interest rates we give to them, in terms of the quantum of financing we give to them. Of course, we are also more disposed to fund green projects and transactions that have a positive impact on the environment and the climate. And of course, also from a gender perspective, in terms of ensuring that there's inclusivity and diversity. So we have some funds targeted at women-owned businesses at way reduced interest rate than what we have for regular industries. Also, the government of Nigeria actually has played a very active role in pushing transition financing. Sometime about 2 years ago, we actually raised a green bond in Nigeria, and that green bond was used to develop renewable energy infrastructure, water treatment, waste management, projects that actually add value to the lives of the social and environmental life. And also, there's the midstream downstream gas infrastructure fund that has just been instituted by the regulator as the Nigerian Midstream regulatory authority. That fund is actually qualifies as a transition funding. It's an equity fund where the government invests in companies that actually are doing green projects or projects that help to develop infrastructure for gas. So it could be gas transportation infrastructure, storage, various, anything that helps our transition agenda. So in Nigeria, our transition energy is gas, and the way we positioned it is to achieve net zero by 2060. But in the meantime, gas is positioned as our transition energy. So a lot of funding around gas infrastructure development, gas processing, and all of those funds are available for our clients, partnering with the local banks and the central bank to ensure that we're able to ensure that we have sustainable financing. Thank you.
It's very interesting. So you actually, do I interpret correctly that you actually give better interest rates to those players
Yes.
that score well on the ESG dimension?
Yes, so they actually get a higher risk rating because we do risk reflective pricing. So that is part of what goes into the scoring for them.
So good behavior is rewarded.
Absolutely.
Well, that's amazing. And also the fact what you've touched, that you force the rest of the value chain to decarbonize and focus on green projects. Khethiwe, you look in a very different way at sustainability. Tell us more, how do you support at Accenture these projects, and what is your involvement? What is sustainability for you?
Thank you so much, Laura. So from a sustainability point of view, I think in the African context, we, as mentioned, I think earlier on, there's a lot of focus around the E, right, in terms of ESG from an environment point of view. And my role really at Accenture is through our corporate citizenship and corporate social responsibility, being a responsible citizen, it's really to focus on the S. How do we make sure that we leverage our ecosystem and our partners and relevant government entities to lift people out of poverty, it's really leveraging entrepreneurship, employment, and job creation. And an example that I'll give is a project where we've actually put in a 50 kilowatt microgrid together with the Digital Innovation Center. And what this does is to cultivate activity in local communities to enable livelihoods and entrepreneurship. So it's really leveraging green and solar energy to lift young people out of poverty. So from a social point of view, it's really important that we really ensure that we leverage the resources that we have, and also what we do is collaborate with other players, so the likes of the African Development Bank, for example, around social bonds. How do we leverage social bonds to actually fast track and enable social impact and lifting, people out of poverty on the continent?
So you start with yes in ESG.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. So probably next year we'll have to bring someone on stage from the governments to start with the G as well, the conversation. But it's interesting to see this different focus and actually you try to meet somewhere in the middle and make the projects happen. And you've touched on something which I think is extremely interesting, the role of international companies. Why, when, how, from all of you, as you feel it makes sense. I see you nodding. Do you wanna start?
Okay. So international companies by their nature have access to a robust and wide portfolio of funding. And I believe that it's going to be easier for them to invest, especially in the African continent where they do a lot of their exploration and production activities from. So the continent is resource rich, and for you to come and, coming in to mine the resources is part of giving back. So I believe the international companies are well positioned to invest in renewable energy sources. They are well positioned to ensure that they also, the activities are not carbon intensive. They invest in carbon capture, storage, infrastructure, and they also help to empower the local community in which they work. So, and then from a knowledge transfer point of view also, they have access to advanced technology, superior knowledge, they should also be willing to give some knowledge transfer. I know in Nigeria there is something called the Logic Act, which requires that every IOC that explores in Nigeria must train and develop the local community in terms of knowledge transfer, and also there is a portion of the project that should be carried out based on competence by Nigerian companies, just to ensure that there is social and economic empowerment. So there's a lot of role that international companies can play. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. And I think what I've seen is that there's a lot of merit in collaboration. South African banks, and I speak from a South African bank point of view, we've done quite a lot in driving sustainable finance in the continent. I mean, Nedbank CIB has been awarded by Global Finance in 2024 as the best sustainable finance bank. So that really speaks to the work that we do within this market. And I mean, we've got transactional presence in other African markets, Angola, Egypt, Cote d'Ivoire, and Rwanda. And what we found is that the international banks have, they've got the scale from a banking point of view, they've got the bigger balance sheet, but we've got the local context. And you often find that we approach funding these projects from a local context as well. So where we've seen value, where in collaboration is in an opportunity in Angola, it's actually a water project, and we were looking to, and it speaks to social. So it's a social loan, and what we've done is we've funded and we co-funded with this international player a water infrastructure project. And essentially what we're trying to do there is provide water in an area where there's serious shortage. And through structuring this as a social loan, the client will then have to do impact reporting on how many people have access to additional safe and clean drinking water. And that's what we mean by impact that's driven through these instruments. And previously, the facility was actually seen as green, and because of the local knowledge that we have, we then said, okay, listen, let's change the structuring process in terms of benefits and what this project aims to achieve. It's not green, it's social. So that's the power of collaboration, but also the power of using sustainable finance instruments, because we really are measuring the impact and making huge change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, in addition as well, I think expanding on the funding, the role that international companies actually do play is, as Mbali mentioned, they've got bigger balance sheets, so that is quite a critical one in terms of leveraging that, but as mentioned as well, around the local context, And lastly, I think the expertise. So the West and international companies are more advanced, right? And I think it is important to ensure that those expertise are shared with the local markets together, working in collaboration.
Absolutely. So that partnership will really bring external expertise, but to a tailored African need, right? And context.
Yes.
I see. And if I can go back to what you've mentioned, Mbali, you've said impact reporting. I think, Oluyatoyin, you've mentioned strategy reports and ESG. If we look now at local companies, how well equipped are they to report in a manner that these international players will want to be able to assess local partners and future investment they make in these companies?
I think it's a developmental area. But I think as a financing institution, it is also our responsibility to hold the hand of our clients and to show them the value in improving their reporting and what that means for them. Because we've seen that incorporating sustainability in your business operations and how you run your business, it does have potential impact from a risk management point of view. Sustainable businesses are doing well. And it's been proven through research and evidence, and we see it all the time. But I think it's important that we demonstrate that value add to our clients, especially when we're working across the rest of the continent. And they're quite keen. Across sovereign and private sector, they're very interested in using and tapping into the sustainable finance market. But then we then need to make sure that we demonstrate the value add, we show them what they need to do, and it's done. It's done.
Is it easier in Nigeria, and you are present in around 6 countries around the continent?
Yes.
Do you see differences between Nigeria and other parts of Africa?
Okay, it's interesting. So we're present in 6 other African countries. So in Ghana, Guinea, Gambia, Sierra Leone, Senegal, and the Congo. So what we try to do as a bank is to try and educate our clients to understand the importance of sustainability reporting and also integrating sustainability in their businesses. Now, at the end of the day, what do? We finance organizations. The continent does not have enough financing it needs to finance itself, and we are still very rich in resources. We've not explored our oil or our mineral resources as much as we could. Now, investors have become more and more particular and sensitive to ensuring that their funds go into projects that can help with sustainability. So it's important that as African businesses, all of this is being captured in our reporting, and that's part of what we do as a bank. We provide advisory to our clients and let them see the importance of ensuring that all of these initiatives that they're doing, no matter how small now, it's called ESGMS. There's the social part of it, which is very easy to actually showcase. There's a governance part of it, there's the environmental part of it. Now, there's a lot more focus on the environment and the climate friendliness, which is very key, given all of the global warming and the issues that we're seeing around the globe. In as much, like I said earlier, we're not the largest contributors. If anything, we are the least. But again, we're doing good, we can do better. And reporting it and ensuring that it's captured in the way we position our businesses would help to attract better financing, cheaper interest rates, more flexible terms, and also a more robust financing mix from the capital market to